In 1968, Oliver brought Dickens' London to life with unforgettable music, powerful performances, and a young boy who captured the world's heart. But behind the charm of this beloved classic, the real lives of its cast would take turns no one ever expected. Some stars are no longer with us, while others faced cancer, strokes, and life confined to hospitals or wheelchairs. This is their journey from then to now, and you won't believe how they changed in 2026. Jack Wilde as the Artful Dodger. Jack Wilde was born on September 30th, 1952, in Royton, England. At 15 years old, he played the Artful Dodger, the charismatic streetwise pickpocket in Oliver. The Artful Dodger is a quick-witted, charming leader of Fagin's gang, a boy surviving on the streets of London who becomes both a mentor figure and companion to Oliver. His energetic and natural performance brought humor and heart to the film, earning him one of the youngest Oscar nominees in history. After his breakthrough, Jack Wilde briefly experienced the fast rise of a teenage star, appearing in projects like H.R. Pufnstuf, 1969, and later Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, 1991. But behind the screen, his personal life became increasingly unstable. He married Gaynor Jones in 1976, and at first their relationship offered him a sense of grounding during his early fame. However, as his struggles with alcohol deepened and fame faded, the marriage became strained, marked by emotional distance and repeated attempts to cope with addiction, eventually leading to their divorce in 1985 after nearly a decade of turbulence. His later years were defined by a painful battle with addiction and declining health that slowly erased the promise of his early success. Alcohol dependence severely impacted his career opportunities and financial stability, leaving him increasingly isolated from the industry that once celebrated him. In 2000, he was diagnosed with oral cancer, and the disease forced him to undergo life-altering surgery that removed part of his tongue and vocal cords, taking away his ability to speak and effectively ending any remaining hopes of returning to acting. Despite this, he found a brief sense of peace in his final relationship with Claire Harding, whom he married in 2005. Jack Wilde passed away on March 1, 2006, at the age of 53 after a long and courageous battle with cancer. He died in England and was laid to rest in a private funeral attended by close family and loved ones. For us, his legacy as the Artful Dodger remains one of the most unforgettable child performances in British cinema history. Ron Moody as Fagin. Ron Moody was born on January 8, 1924, in London, England. At 44 years old, he played Fagin, the cunning yet strangely sympathetic leader of the pickpocket gang in Oliver, 1968. Fagin is the mastermind behind a group of orphaned boys surviving on theft in the streets of Victorian London. His performance earned him a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination, and cemented Oliver as a landmark musical in cinema history. Despite his massive success, Moody often described the role of Fagin as both a blessing and a burden that followed him for the rest of his career. Although he had already played the character on stage before bringing it to the screen, the film version typecast him heavily, limiting his opportunities in Hollywood and making it difficult for him to escape the image of eccentric, older comedic roles. He continued acting in projects such as The 12 Chairs, 1970, and later appeared in British television, including EastEnders, but he never fully stepped out of Fagin's shadow. Away from the screen, however, Moody's personal life was far more stable than many of his peers. In 1985, at the age of 61, he married Therese Blackburn, and together they built a quiet family life with 6 children, far removed from the chaos of Hollywood fame. He lived a relatively peaceful later life, focusing on family rather than public attention. Ron Moody passed away on June 11, 2015, at the age of 91 from natural causes related to old age. He died peacefully in a hospital in England, leaving behind a legacy valued not only in artistic respect, but also in estimated personal wealth accumulated through decades of stage and screen work. Mark Lester as Oliver Twist. Mark Lester was born on July 11, 1958, in London, England. At 10 years old, he played Oliver Twist, the innocent orphan in Oliver, 1968. Oliver is a fragile, wide-eyed boy who escapes the brutal workhouse life and unknowingly challenges a world of poverty, crime, and survival in Victorian London. His performance became the emotional core of the film and helped turn Oliver into a global musical phenomenon that defined a generation. Following his breakthrough, Lester continued acting in films such as Melody, 1971, and Run Wild, Run Free, 1971, but fame began to feel like a burden rather than a gift. In his personal life, he married his first wife, Jane, and together they had 4 children, though the marriage eventually ended in divorce in 2005, after years of strain and separation pressures. Despite the breakdown of his first marriage, he later rebuilt his personal life and found stability again with his second wife, Lisa Lester, whom he married in 2006, choosing a quieter and more private life away from Hollywood chaos. As the pressures of early fame faded, Lester gradually stepped away from acting and chose a different direction. He trained as an osteopath and eventually established a private practice in the UK, dedicating his life to helping patients physically heal while he himself was healing from the emotional weight of childhood stardom. Over the years, he occasionally re-entered public conversation due to interviews and media fascination with his past, especially surrounding his connection to fame at such a young age and controversial headlines that followed him in later life. In 2026, 68 years old, Mark Lester lives a private life focused on family and his medical career. Today, he remains best remembered as the boy who brought Oliver Twist to life, forever tied to one of cinema's most iconic child performances. Oliver Reed as Bill Sykes. Oliver Reed was born on February 13, 1938, in London, England. At 30 years old, he played Bill Sykes, the violent and feared criminal in Oliver, 1968. Bill Sykes is one of the darkest figures in the story, a brutal enforcer in London's underworld whose presence brings fear, tension, and danger into every scene he appears in. Reed's intense and unpredictable performance gave the film its most dangerous edge and became one of the most memorable portrayals in the entire production. Reed's life off-screen was just as turbulent as the characters he portrayed. He married Kate Byrne in 1959 and they had 2 children together, but the marriage collapsed in 1969 amid heavy drinking, infidelity, and growing personal instability. Years later, he shocked the public again by marrying Josephine Burge in 1985, who was 21 at the time while he was 47, and although the relationship lasted until his death, his reputation as a wild and uncontrollable figure continued to follow him throughout his life. His struggles with alcohol became legendary in the film industry, which made him both feared and admired in Hollywood circles. Despite his talent in films like Women in Love, 1969, The Three Musketeers, 1973, and later Gladiator, 2000, his career was constantly overshadowed by his self-destructive lifestyle. During the filming of Gladiator in 1999, while on break in Malta, he died suddenly after a heavy drinking session that triggered a fatal heart attack linked to acute alcohol poisoning, forcing the production to complete his role using CGI at an estimated additional cost of $3 million. Oliver Reed passed away on May 2, 1999, at the age of 61. He was laid to rest in England, leaving behind a complicated but legendary legacy and an estimated net worth built from decades of high-profile film work. Despite his scandals and untamed life, he remains immortalized as Bill Sykes. Harry Secombe as Mr. Bumble. Harry Secombe was born on September 8, 1921, in Swansea, Wales. At 46 years old, he played Mr. Bumble, the pompous workhouse beadle in Oliver, 1968. Mr. Bumble is a self-important official who enforces cruel Victorian rules with arrogance and comic hypocrisy, making him both ridiculous and intimidating in equal measure. His performance added a sharp layer of satire to the film and helped balance its emotional weight with dark humor. Behind the laughter and booming voice, Secombe carried deep emotional scars from his time serving in World War II as a gunner in North Africa, experiences that stayed with him long after the war ended. He later built a successful entertainment career as a key member of the legendary BBC radio comedy The Goon Show, and went on to host Highway, becoming one of Britain's most beloved television and radio personalities. In his personal life, Secombe lived what many described as a rare Hollywood-style stable marriage. He married Myra Joan Atherton in 1948, and their relationship lasted more than 5 decades until his death, producing 4 children and remaining strong despite the pressures of fame. However, his later years were marked by serious health struggles, beginning with a diagnosis of diabetes in 1980, followed by a severe stroke in 1997 that left him partially paralyzed and forced him to retire from performing, ending his public career. Harry Secombe passed away on April 11, 2001, at the age of 79 after battling prostate cancer in his final years. He died in England, surrounded by family, following a gradual decline caused by the illness. Today, he remains remembered as Sir Harry Secombe, the warm-hearted entertainer whose laughter defined a generation. Sheila White as Bet. Sheila White was born on October 18, 1948, in London, England. At 19 years old, she played Bet, one of Fagin's lively young pickpockets in Oliver, 1968. Bet is a streetwise and spirited girl living in London's harsh underworld, adding emotional texture and realism to the group of children under Fagin's control. Her performance brought authenticity and charm to the film, helping complete the gritty yet musical world of Victorian street life. Sheila White began acting at a very young age in theater, facing intense competition in London's demanding entertainment industry. Although Oliver gave her early recognition, she struggled to maintain a strong presence in major films and gradually shifted toward British television work, including acclaimed appearances in Poldark, 1975, Claudius, 1976, and sitcom roles such as Confessions of a Driving Instructor. This transition allowed her to sustain her career, even if she never fully achieved international film stardom. In 1983, she married actor Richard Wright, and together they built a stable and long-lasting marriage, raising 2 sons. Sheila White chose a quieter life focused on family and television work. In her later years, she stepped away from the spotlight entirely, embracing privacy and a slower lifestyle away from the pressures of the entertainment industry. Sheila White passed away on September 7, 2018, at the age of 69 in Spain, after a short illness that her family chose to keep private. She left behind a modest but respected career in British film and television. Hugh Griffith as Magistrate. Hugh Griffith was born on May 30, 1912, in Wales, United Kingdom. At 56 years old, he played Magistrate, the father of the courtroom in Oliver, 1968. The Magistrate is a strict and self-important judge who delivers punishment with cold authority, representing the harsh moral system that controls Victorian society. His performance brought a sharp sense of irony to the film, making the world of Oliver feel more oppressive and exposing the cruelty hidden behind legal order. These experiences shaped his disciplined approach to acting, which eventually led him into international cinema success. He won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in Ben-Hur, 1959, as Sheikh Ilderim, a wealthy Arab ally of Judah Ben-Hur, and later received another Oscar nomination for Tom Jones, 1963, as Squire Western, a hot-tempered English nobleman. Despite this recognition, his career was increasingly affected by severe alcohol addiction, which often disrupted filming schedules and strained his relationships with directors and co-stars. In his personal life, Hugh Griffith married Glyn Jones in 1947, and she remained his wife throughout his life, standing by him even during his most difficult periods. His alcoholism gradually worsened over the years, leading to heart problems and declining physical health, although he continued working in film and television whenever possible. Hugh Griffith passed away on May 14, 1980, at the age of 67 in London after suffering a fatal heart attack at his home. He was laid to rest in the United Kingdom, leaving behind a legacy as an Academy Award-winning actor known for powerful supporting roles across stage and screen. Joseph O'Connor as Mr. Brownlow. Joseph O'Connor was born on February 14, 1916, in Dublin, Ireland. At 52 years old, he played Mr. Brownlow, the adoptive father of Oliver in Oliver, 1968. Mr. Brownlow is a gentle and compassionate gentleman who rescues Oliver from the streets and offers him safety, education, and a sense of belonging. His role brought emotional warmth to the film and stood as a moral contrast to the cruelty of Fagin's world and London's criminal underworld. Alongside his stage career, he appeared in films such as The Forbidden Planet and later The Dark Crystal, 1982, balancing artistic theater work with occasional screen roles to maintain financial stability. His career reflected the experience of many serious British actors of his generation, who often moved between stage and film to support their livelihoods in the post-war entertainment industry. In his personal life, Joseph O'Connor married Nona Blamire, and their marriage remained steady and private, free from public controversy or scandal. He was known for his reserved and grounded personality, choosing to focus on theater work rather than Hollywood attention or fame. As he grew older, he gradually reduced his acting work and embraced a quieter life centered on family and stage legacy. Joseph O'Connor passed away on January 21, 2001, at the age of 85 in London, due to natural causes related to old age. He was laid to rest in the United Kingdom, remembered as a dignified and reliable stage actor whose career was built on consistency rather than celebrity. Peggy Mount as Mrs. Bumble. Peggy Mount was born on May 2, 1915, in England. At 52 years old, she played Mrs. Bumble, the wife of Mr. Bumble in Oliver, 1968. Mrs. Bumble is a strict, sharp-tongued workhouse matron who helps her husband enforce harsh discipline over the orphaned children. Her performance added a fierce, dramatic edge to the film, making the workhouse scenes feel even more oppressive and emotionally brutal. These experiences from her troubled childhood. Peggy Mount grew up in a difficult household after losing her father early in life, and she was raised under the strict discipline of her mother during financially unstable years. Although she achieved major success in British television with series like The Larkins and George and Mildred, she was often typecast as domineering, intimidating women, which limited her career range and left her feeling somewhat disconnected from public perception of her real personality. As she aged, her health declined significantly, and she eventually became completely blind due to cataract complications. In her final years, she lived quietly at Denville Hall, a retirement home for actors, where she received full-time care away from public attention. She suffered a series of strokes before passing away, bringing an end to a life marked by both professional recognition and personal isolation. Peggy Mount died on November 13, 2001, at the age of 85 in England. She was laid to rest in the United Kingdom, remembered as one of British television's most formidable comedic performers. After all, her financial status reflected a modest but steady career built across decades of theater and television work, and she remains best remembered as Mrs. Bumble. Leonard Rossiter as Mr. Sowerberry. Leonard Rossiter was born on October 21, 1926, in Liverpool, England. At 41 years old, he played Mr. Sowerberry, the undertaker and coffin maker in Oliver, 1968. Mr. Sowerberry is a cynical and opportunistic businessman who profits from death, adding a darkly comic but unsettling tone to Oliver's early journey through poverty and exploitation. His performance strengthened the film's social critique by showing how even tragedy becomes a source of profit in Victorian London. Rossiter built a highly respected career in British entertainment, becoming widely known for his precise comedic timing and intense attention to detail. He achieved major success in television with Rising Damp and The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin, and also appeared in major productions such as 2001, A Space Odyssey. His reputation for perfectionism made him both admired and occasionally challenging to work with, as he demanded high standards in every performance he delivered. In his personal life, Leonard Rossiter first married Josephine Tewson in 1958, but the marriage ended in divorce in 1961. He later found long-term stability with Gillian Raine, whom he married in 1972, and together they had a daughter. Despite his professional achievements, his perfectionist nature often created internal pressure and stress, which followed him throughout his working life in theater and television. Leonard Rossiter died suddenly on October 5, 1984, at the age of 58 in London, after collapsing backstage at the Duchess Theatre during preparations for the play Loot. He suffered a fatal cardiac event caused by hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a condition that had not been previously diagnosed. He was laid to rest in England, leaving behind a respected legacy in British television and theatre, with an estimated modest fortune earned through decades of acclaimed work. James Hayter, as Mr. Jessup. James Hayter was born on April 23, 1907, in England. At 61 years old, he played Mr. Jessup, the senior workhouse official in Oliver, 1968. Mr. Jessup is one of the administrative figures who oversees the orphan workhouse system, representing the rigid bureaucracy that treats children as burdens rather than individuals. His performance helped reinforce the film's depiction of institutional coldness, adding weight to the harsh environment Oliver is forced to survive in. James Hayter belonged to an older generation of British actors. Over time, he became widely recognized for his distinctive voice, which was frequently used in radio, narration, and commercial work. However, this same vocal identity often led to him being typecast, limiting his opportunities to take on more serious dramatic roles despite his strong acting ability. His career highlights included The Pickwick Papers, 1952, which earned him a BAFTA nomination, and Trio, 1950, both of which showcased his versatility. In his personal life, James Hayter married Mary Elizabeth Hayter, and together they raised a large family of 8 children. Despite professional limitations, he maintained steady work throughout his career, balancing stage, film, and voice roles to support his family. James Hayter passed away on March 27, 1983, at the age of 75 in Spain, due to complications related to old age. He was laid to rest in the United Kingdom, remembered as a dependable character actor with a distinctive voice and long-standing contribution to British cinema. Elizabeth Knight as Charlotte. Elizabeth Knight was born on November 1, 1944, in England. At 24 years old, she played Charlotte, a strict and outspoken maid in Oliver, 1968. Charlotte is a sharp-tongued domestic worker in the household system surrounding Oliver's world, reflecting the rigid class boundaries and harsh treatment of servants in Victorian society. Her performance added tension and realism to the upper-class environment shown in the film. After Oliver, Elizabeth Knight struggled to establish a stable film career in the British entertainment industry. Instead of leading roles, she was often cast in supporting parts, particularly in low-budget horror films such as The Vampire Lovers, 1970, which limited her ability to break into more mainstream dramatic work. Over time, the lack of strong opportunities and mounting financial pressure contributed to long-term emotional struggles, including periods of depression that affected both her career and personal life. In her personal life, she married Michael J. Morris in 1972, but the marriage did not bring lasting happiness, and she eventually withdrew from public life, choosing to live in relative isolation. As her acting opportunities declined, she became increasingly private, stepping away from the entertainment industry altogether. Her later years were marked by a quiet lifestyle away from media attention, reflecting a gradual withdrawal from the profession she once pursued with ambition. Elizabeth Knight passed away on October 22, 2005, at the age of 61 after battling breast cancer for an extended period. She was laid to rest in the United Kingdom, with her family keeping the final years of her illness private. Today, she remains remembered as Charlotte in Oliver, a small but vivid part of the film's Victorian world. Fred Emney as chairman. Workhouse Fred Emney was born on February 12, 1900, in England. At 68 years old, he played chairman, the workhouse board chairman in Oliver, 1968. The chairman is the senior authority figure who oversees the harsh administration of the workhouse system, calmly approving rules and decisions that shape the harsh lives of orphaned children. His performance added a layer of cold, bureaucratic authority to the film, making the workhouse scenes feel even more controlled and emotionally detached. Because of his large physique, weighing over 130 kilograms, and his distinctive monocle and upper-class demeanor, he was frequently typecast as wealthy, pompous gentlemen or comedic aristocrats. While this brought him steady work in British cinema, it also limited the range of roles he could pursue, and in his later years he struggled with mobility issues caused by his weight, which increasingly affected his health and daily comfort. In his personal life, Fred Emney married Hazel Heron in 1937, and the couple remained together in a quiet, stable, and private marriage without public scandals or controversy. Despite the pressures of typecasting, he maintained a consistent career in film and theater, appearing in productions such as The Italian Job, 1969, and Lock Up Your Daughters, which kept him active in the industry well into his later years. Fred Emney passed away on December 25, 1980, at the age of 80 in London after suffering from long-term heart and kidney failure. He died on Christmas Day in a hospital following a period of declining health and was laid to rest in the United Kingdom. At the time of his death, he remains remembered as the dignified chairman of the workhouse in Oliver. So, after revisiting the child stars and legendary cast of Oliver, we've seen how each of these unforgettable performers carried both triumph and tragedy far beyond the film that changed their lives forever. Which cast member's journey shocked you the most? If you enjoyed this documentary-style story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more cast updates, Then Vers Now journeys, and untold Hollywood stories.